All right, so here in a minute, we are running a little bit early. We're going to have Erkin Ekici come on to talk about cloud and DevOps culture. And then that's going to be followed up by some closing remarks. So do stick around for that as well. And there we go. Technical issues. So we are working through those. So yeah, I will remind everyone as we work through this last presentation that as we go through, you can ask questions over in chat. Doc, I appreciated you asking the rapid fire questions in the middle of the presentation last time, and let me have them all nice and queued up for the end. So feel free to do that throughout our last presentation as well. And like I said, we're going to have a set of closing remarks from Mehdi, the chairman of Apidays conferences coming after this presentation as well. And then the videos are going to be sent out to the attendees. I believe they're going to be on YouTube. I'm not entirely sure on that. Hey, Erkin, welcome. I think you're still on mute.
Hello. Thank
Hello.
you. Just give me 2 minutes.
Yeah, no problem. Ty, thanks for the question. My day's been lovely. I've been sharing my day with you all throughout the day today, and it's been amazing. I've really enjoyed watching all the talks that we've seen. I like that we've actually had multiple public sector talks too. Like that's kind of surprising to me. I don't know if anyone in the audience has been dealing with public sector. I actually, when I used to work in agencies, avoided the public sector for that same kind of assumption that both of our presenters talked about, where it moves so slow and you have to go through all these regulations. And so I actively avoided it in agency life. But I'm glad to see that these things are being adopted. Obviously, we had Matt Clark talking about how this is adopted at the federal level through testing and through edge testing. And then obviously James talked about GraphQL and low code solutions in the public sector just a second ago. And then let's see, Doc saying, I'd love to hear more about low code or no code in public sector. Yeah, that's a super interesting topic. And I think there's so much that can go into that too, because all of these places have needs for programmatic solutions. And I think as we see adoption of no code and low code in the private sector as well, I think all that kind of bleeds over into the public sector. I used to run some communities that had a nonprofit hackathon once a year, and everything came through in a very no code solution kind of setup on a lot of these things like Airtable and that sort of thing to collect things and then automate things in various ways. So I think as we see more private adoption on a lot of that, we will also see the public sector catch up, whether they are slightly behind or whether they are right at the forefront. Still remains to be seen. And Doc, yes, the videos from throughout the conference will be available. They're not available yet. We'll send it out to the attendees to have a YouTube link there. I think YouTube. We'll see. I don't know anything about that. I'm just the pretty face for the day. But I do know they are being recorded and they are being sent out as well. So no worries on that. If you missed anything, you'll get it. You won't be able to ask questions, obviously, because they'll have been recorded. That's my little joke. But we are going to have those sent out to everyone as well. All right, welcome back to this day. Let me scroll through. Let's see, we had a couple questions about the videos and where they can be found after. But yeah, so I'd be curious to know in chat as we wait about any insights that y'all have picked up through the day. Ty Cooper is asking me to show myself. Yes, I am on both LinkedIn and Twitter. I'm on Twitter at BROB, and on LinkedIn, Brian L. Robinson, I think is the LinkedIn handle there. But you can find me on both of those places. As well as I am the head of DevRel at HighGraph, so you'll see me around a lot there. Hey, Erkin, welcome to the stage.
Hey, hello. Do you hear me fine?
I do. It's coming through great.
Yes, perfect.
So I'm a just kind of scooch myself off stage. We're gonna get your presentation up and get you moving on the last presentation of the day. Looks like we need you to. Sure. So yeah, so while we work out the technical issues, let's see, what else can we talk about today? So I was also, like I mentioned, there we go.
Do you,
All
do you
right.
see the slides now? Sorry.
Yes, it looks like everything is coming through
Yeah.
perfect.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Perfect. Thank you. And sorry for the issue. And yeah, today we will talk about as a last talk, cloud and DevOps culture. Cloud was mentioned a lot today, and it was mostly on technical level. So I'm thinking like we can maybe look at it on a more softer level, like what is culture, which is not something that we IT people often think about. And so I will start by defining what culture is, and then or what cloud is, and then DevOps culture, and then I will share some best practices and anti-patterns that I see most of the time. So this is a little bit about me. I have a very technical background. I think too much. I work a lot with open source, and I use a lot of buzzwords in my job title, and my head is like a banana. I do have some hobbies, and yeah, I cannot count. So let's start with what is cloud, and I can describe it like a metaverse, as in the picture you see. It's like simulation of things that was before blinking lights and hard disks and all this physical stuff. And it's also like a computer game. It's fun because you can imagine something and it just happens. So this is almost like virtual reality, where with the code you can control what's going on in the reality. And what most important concept is infrastructure as code, which I'm sure many of you is already comfortable with, and we see examples today. And this is also what it is about. You simply say, like, give me a database, web application, or maybe a machine learning model, and everything that is hardware happens behind the scenes automatically. And it's scalable, so we don't need to think about all of the details and configuration and hardware behind it. And even on the second picture, you see a Storm Trooper from Google data centers. They actually use that. So it's also another example of what is declarative, because the infrastructure as code we see is also all about declaration, just like GraphQL as well. So we live in a declarative world, and this is an example of it. I created this art using AI-based solution called DALL-E, and you just give it a paragraph of words, and it generates the art for you. And you see that I gave it 2 descriptions of a fantasy, and it's an AI that was created by scanning like millions of pictures on the internet, and it created these art pictures. And I think this is a very cool example that's also showing we are living in the age of world and declaration, because cloud is also all about declaration. You declare what you want, and then it just happens and you get it. And this is also another important concept is also DevOps that comes with it. DevOps is not necessarily about CI/CD pipelines or even automation and or like DORA metrics that some managers use. It's more about like a factory metaphor. Okay, how we can organize our organization as autonomous units, so we can streamline the production all together in a faster way. And this is also enabled by cloud and infrastructure as code declarations. And then this is the complex part. What is actually a culture? So if we there are different models of that tries to define what culture is, and one of the models is this Johnson and Scholes cultural web model. I like this model because it simplifies the culture, as you see in the center, and 6 edges around it, like stories, symbols, rituals and routines, power structures, organizational structure, and controls, including things like how we reward and how we measure. And I think it's like on the right, I also put national currency of different countries, and it also shows something about their culture, even the symbols on their currency. So imagine how many symbols and how many rituals like we're getting bombarded to every day, and how it's shaping the world we see today. And it's also about it's the same with cloud as well. So if we think about symbols, for example, before cloud it was about Gantt charts, these big status reports, but after cloud it's like logos on the back of people's laptops, like Kubernetes or GraphQL. So symbolism is different than what it was before the cloud. And also the controls. Before it was more about checklists, individuals and groups, more about people. But after cloud, it's more shift left, and controls are mostly the code. So it's not about the individual or team, but more like a department thing. And also, rituals and routines. Before it was like this big financial report, like reports and waterfall documents, but now it's like shorter iterations, stuff like pushing deployments and data stand-ups. And this is also another model by a guy called Edgar Schein, and he defines culture as like we first make some assumptions, and then we build values around these assumptions, and it affects our behavior and how we behave. So we exhibit our behavior, cultural behavior, based on values that are based off the assumptions. And it also makes me think like what kind of assumptions we make in a culture that in a company that affects the culture. And these are in the table some speculative things that I come to think of or observe others do. So one thing is authority. Is it an individual or group, or is it a code? This is also very sensitive topics in some organization. Like or engineers, do they do the work? Do we hire engineers to do what we tell them to do? Or do engineers drive the change? Am I as an engineer driving the change? Also, same thing with the investment. Did we spend millions on building value, or just blow millions on technical debt? So these kind of dilemmas, I'm sure you're also used to them because it happens in almost any organization that's running through any kind of cloud transformation. And they are not always open. They're often held inside of us. But even though we don't talk about them, it influences our behavior and outcomes of us as an individuals, also as a company that we work in. So like if we recap, it's about three things that we need to do. We need to rethink our organization as a cloud software factory and change a lot of things that we do from secure supply chain to extract the most value from cloud. And the second one is that this mindset of building a software factory should be more important than the management hierarchy we have. And obviously, people like to keep their positions, and they would not like that. And the third one is that it's something that's not easy to do. Meanwhile, we need to deliver and make money as a company. Some bad things that I see in the cloud journey of the companies, that the first one is what we talk about culture. It is the picture you see is from, by the way, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones movie, and it's visualizing someone coming to a gunfight with a knife. And it's a very common anti-pattern, because culture is more complex. It's more complex than cloud computing or anything technical. It is about psychology, behavior economics, and how networks and science work. So it's not something that we as IT people often think about, or IT organization, or even people who work with IT transformation. It's something that I see all the time that is getting underestimated, but we need to understand that it's a very complex problem. And the second is to not factor in the human condition. And this is more about like the book on the middle, the 48 laws of power. It is a book about how can you game a little bit, play a little bit to gain wins, like maybe some political influence. You lie to someone and you play with another one to gain more social status. But it doesn't work when we want to run a successful cloud journey, because it's more ideological thing. It's not about small micro wins, but more about believing in something together, and it's ideologically driven. And also, I like this quote as well. On the bottom, it is difficult to get a man to understand something when his seller depends on his not understanding it. So the human factor affects us all when we want to build the future IT or a successful cloud-based company, because transformation is hard, because we often, the big companies have the legacy, and we have people who like to maintain their positions in this legacy, which are often harder problem than technical problems. And also the third thing, that third anti-pattern, is like using only hierarchy. So we have a manager and managers that comes up with good strategy that will be whole way bottom, that will be implemented. So this is not really recombining, because in bigger organizations you have very different management hierarchies and management trees, pyramids, without good communication channels between each other. But by creating like communities and alternative communication channels, we can connect these dots. So it's not always about hierarchy or someone having a great idea at the top, but it's also about like how we can connect the engineers and technical people, and it's like a fungal network that can give nutrients to the trees so they can grow in the organization. And the last one, and I see that we don't have too much time, so I will not go into so much detail, but something that we often forget is to is ignoring the settlers, which means that we have pioneers, which are the first doers in the organization, and we have town planners that are governing the organization. But we have also settlers that are doing something good, and consistently they help to patch the system, and they drive the culture. And yeah, and the last thing is to forget to have fun, because cloud is like a video game. It's pretty awesome and cool, and we have the latest technology that we can play around with, like Lego. If we are not having fun, then we are missing something. And for some suggestions here, 3 suggestions for a happy cloud culture. And the first one is to like understand how the software engineers think. And software engineer, I also mean the data scientists and all that somehow works with the code, because they deliver value to the company, and the company needs them. So we need to build the companies around the mindset of them. And we see in the picture Freud's couch, so couch. And if we put a developer here and think of his inner world, we will see that they're often like type B personalities, meritocratic, has aesthetic ideals, sometimes very religious about them, and often lazy, which is a good thing that helps to automate. So we need to understand how they think and have proper career paths, events that they can enjoy, and inner sourcing and education opportunities for self-development. This way we can extract value from the engineers, and also build a good culture. And the second thing, which I think is the most important, to understand how the big companies drive this their cultural journey. So Google, we can sum it up as a psychological safety. So if I read the text here, speaking up at work can be difficult. People worry that their boss or colleagues won't like what they have to say. As a result, people hold back on everything from good ideas to great questions. But by fostering psychological safety, all employees can feel safe to speak up. And this is something that happens often in the organizations, that you cannot tell what you think if you don't agree with something or managerial decision. And this is not good, because we as leaders always make mistakes, and we will make mistakes. So it's important that we can identify them as quick as possible. And this is not only the engineers, but mostly the C-level executives are the ones that are having the least psychological safe environment. And if you look at the Amazon model, it's a lot about cybernetics, which is about feedback loops. So how can we grow on the feedback? And they kind of exploit this model. And also on the right, they have leadership principles, where they see leadership not as an individual thing, but as a leadership system. Like it's not about a single person, but anyone can be a leader. And I think the most important point they have in this list as a principle is have a backbone, disagree, and commit. So it means that even though we have we have another mandate, or we are told something else, if we really believe in something, then we should do it. I think it's very important to drive innovation, but it's also hard because it requires you to become psychologically safe, as Google was talking about, and open and speak your mind, and also execute a plan without overthinking it. The last hyperscaler is Microsoft, and this is this was also in Bella's book. I think the name was Hit and Reset. He uses word empathy a lot to build culture around empathy. And this is also 3 points that I was told by Microsoft employees that this is how they're rated. And also they might have these on the back of their badges next year, 2023. And I think this is great. It's genius because it's very simple. Because it's behavioral economics. When people know that they're part of the assessment, what is expected from them, then they deliver this, and it gives great results. And this is how I delighted the customer, how I helped another team to be able to work on others. So this is all about collaboration, all 3 points. And as a last suggestion is to have communities. And this is also something that we lack in many organizations, that we only have our team and our department, but not these cross functional communities or cross communities across the organization. And this is important, and this is worthwhile. It helps to bring smart people together in the same room, outside of their daily job and their daily structure. And it allows them to mentor each other, scale information in the company, network, and generate very good ideas for the future of the organization. And this helps a lot for the future health of the organization. So if we sum it up, what we talked about, so cloud is like a video game. It's like a metaverse where you can control. Hi, Brian. It's like a metaverse where you can control the reality by declarative statements, and DevOps is built a culture around it, and like a machinery. And culture is very complex, but important to understand. We need to reinvent our organizations around the software mindset and not only the hierarchies. And we should build communities to to create alternative communication channel for a good company culture. And the last point is that we need to also have fun, because cloud is cool and it is our future. So thank you for listening.
Awesome. Great talk. I love ending the entire conference on a philosophical talk like this. Like going down that path is kind of a great way to end the day. So I appreciate that. Let's have a round of applause in chat for Erkin, and let's get any questions you might have in there as well as we wrap things up. So one of the things that kind of struck me is, as you were kind of talking through all this, after you kind of defined, cloud and DevOps and stuff like that, was everything else I think applies not just to DevOps and cloud, but also to just good workplaces and good places to be and good communities. And like, I don't know, it's such a broadly applicable thing that you were talking about there. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that.
Yeah, thank you. I agree, and this is like this is probably the future of any organization, not only IT organization or cloud transformation, but cloud just gives us the tools so we can do it faster and more IT driven. But I agree completely. I don't think it's only about IT, but also in the like public sector or health sector, like anywhere it is applicable and great way of working. And it's good that it's being enabled by the technical people, the future way of working.
Yep. And then let's see, we got Doc Jones in the chat saying, excellent talk. So much I need to learn about building culture. And frankly, it's missing from my company. How can I, as an individual, get the company to move in that direction? How can you get a company to start moving towards better culture?
Yeah, I can become like a management consultant and I can say this is the answer, but no one knows the answer. As we talk, it's a very very complex thing. Most people think about it if the highest manager says something, it sets the culture, but often it get lost. Even they don't affect the culture too much, or sometimes not at all. So I think it's more about like if you as an individual want to take an action and create a better culture for the company and for the coworkers, I think it can be very good to invest in community building, like get together, maybe meet like-minded people once a week, 1 hour. Start with that and think about what we can do together, what we can achieve. As long as you get the support, I think then you can scale the same way of thinking and improve the culture together.
And Doc says in chat that they've done a few things to build some cross-team social interactions. I think that there's something to be said also. You talk about community. I've built a number of communities, both locally and virtually, and it's hard to do that on your own. So if you've already had these cross-team social interactions, get some of those people that you've been been having these interactions with, and like maybe build your own little team that handles cultural improvement at the company.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a good comment, and some companies have these transformative teams that work so with transformation. But I think it's also important to drive it through the doers of the company, like the engineers, the real working minds of the company. Because sometimes when we have specialized people that just works with transformation, their message gets lost as well. So it's something that we all should be included, or it's that doesn't work at all.
And I feel like we've all been in those team building moments where they've hired an outside consultant and we're doing things we don't necessarily want to do. I think we do that maybe even more in the virtual kind of world that we live in at this point. So yeah, I think driving change from inside is definitely the way to go. Exactly. Awesome. So Erkin, thank you so much for presenting. It's